Many believe a photo is worth 1,000 words. If that's true, Noah Benjamin Stahl will be telling Ada's story forever.
He recorded history that would never have been brought to light had he not been here. And to have the quality and then, the innovation that he had.
N.B. Stahl was born into a farming family in Ohio in 1879. As a young man, he worked his way south, stopping for a spell in Ironton, Missouri, where he worked in the town's iron ore mines. Stahl was a prompt man and was irritated when his mining partner refused to hurry his lunch, causing them to miss the starting bell. As the two men hurried back to start their shift, the mine shaft caved in, prompting Stahl to make a career change on the spot. After 1900, Stahl apprenticed in Dallas as a sidewalk photographer. He hopped a train to Ada in 1905 and started his photography career in earnest, becoming the young community's first ever visual documentarian.
He photographed the Fitz fields. We got to see wooden oil derricks. We don't know what those look like today, but that's what they originally were. N.B. Stahl also, probably the most famous person he photographed, Oral Roberts. And he photographed a lot of people. It's amazing how many people came in to us to say, N.B. took our picture from all over the area. I loved looking at the light fixtures, the banks on there, the architecture, how it's changed, seeing the Juliana when it was a 5-star hotel. Wow.
Stahl's most famous photograph is of the infamous Ada hanging that occurred on April 19, 1909, only 4 years after he started his career. It is a grisly image that appeared on postcards and in newspapers around the world, and eventually made its way into history books.
Again, he's recorded history and saved it for us, and what would Ada be without the hanging picture? That's what we're famous for.
Stahl's studio was located on the east side of Broadway, between Main and 12th Streets. Early on, it featured a skylight that allowed him to work indoors only on sunny days. Later, he used a flash pan with gunpowder when working indoors. Stahl's two sons once tried the flash when their father was away, causing burn marks on the ceiling.
There were 2 other photographers that owned the studio between us. Marguerite Barnes worked for N.B. Stahl, neither owned it or continued with it until Guy Logston bought it. Guy Logston bought it, and we understand he didn't have it for very long before we bought it. And we bought it in 1956 in the same location as N.B. Stahl. And I remember the studio being dusty. It was a double layer. The studio is a kind of a shotgun type. You came into the lobby and it went back to the dressing rooms, and then the studios, then there was a workroom behind it.
Stahl used an 8x10 camera for the majority of his work, although he also utilized a smaller field camera for outdoor photography. His big camera was almost a piece of art in itself.
Well, I'm thinking it was built around 1900, 1910, something like that. Sheet film, 1 shot at a time. You have to turn the film thing. You get 2 shots, one side, one on the other, and develop it yourself. The first thing that is beautiful, the lens. In portraiture, you do not want a perfect, sharp lens. You want a soft, very minute lens, and that's what this camera gave you. The lens that came with it was a 14-inch lens. The softness, the liveliness that it gave it, there's nothing today that comes close to it.
As was the custom in the early 20th century, Stahl utilized large negative plates.
And the bigger the negative, the better the quality. And that's the secret of getting everything on the negative. Back in the olden days when you used the larger cameras, it took a long time to get that one shot. When you were putting one sheet in at a time, you took your time, you paid attention to the posing, made sure that it was in focus, and took the shot. You would have to develop it, which is probably an hour, and let it dry, and then print it. It'd be probably the next day by best. So the sitting would probably be, you just hope you took enough and got one out of it. If you had a blemish or something that's going to be very large, you'll be able to see it. Back in the black and white days, when they retouched, they used graphite pencils on a retouching machine that vibrated, and you would touch in the blemishes, soften the lines in the eyes and the smile wrinkles, and you could even build up highlights. A very good retoucher. I was not quite the retoucher that my dad was, and I think M.B. Stahl was the master.
Stahl was an excellent photographer and also an innovator in his field. He invented his own unique versions of an enlarger and a developing tank.
I don't know whether he kind of developed it that way because he was an inventor. It's probably 10 foot long, and it's got a bicycle chain that made it go up and down. It's one of a kind.
Stahl was widely respected and recognized as a pioneer by his peers. He established the Southwest Professional Photographers Association in 1931 and served as its first president. He followed that in 1934 and 1935 as president of the Professional Photographers of Oklahoma. Stahl passed away in 1950, but not before creating and leaving behind an enormous visual legacy for all current and future Ada residents.
As owner of a studio, you would hear people come in and say, "Yeah, M.B. Stahl photographed me," and they were proud of it. I mean, it was like being photographed by the president. I mean, it's quite unique.